Recently, these two fellows here talked me into dragging this brand new shiny street bike around what is essentially the largest active volcano on Earth. What could go wrong? Find out shortly. Join us, won't you? First off, let's talk about the setting. Mauna Kea rises 33,500 feet above the ocean floor, but only 13,000 feet above sea level. But that's where we will be riding today, right around 7,000 feet through the Parker Ranch and around, skirting around midway up Mauna Kea around to the southern side. And the characters, Dave here on his Super Tenere, scratchless and dentless at this point. This is his second time in the dirt on a street bike, or any bike for that matter. He has very little experience. Chris back here has, like me, almost 40 years or more experience in the dirt and riding a very capable trail bike. And at this point I have had several reviews of Mauna Road, some saying it's tricky in a few parts. Chris has actually circled the mountain and said it was a little bit difficult, but he had no concerns. And at this point it seemed relatively easy, just a simple dirt road with a few little potholes in it, very little traffic. We passed some motorcycles and I think a few four-wheelers, but otherwise just beautiful scenery, the perfect road for Dave's street bike with street tires and my street bike with big blocky knobby tires. Turns out that the Super T was much more capable than I gave it credit for. I just think of these big adventure bikes as more of an ideal than a bike that is made for rougher trails like we wound up running into. But at this point I just had some concerns about Dave's lack of experience in the dirt and his street tires more so than anything else. So right around this corner we pulled over to discuss some things because I didn't want anybody to get hurt, and that was my biggest concern.
Alright, I can see your brain thinking. What's your thought?
We need to talk about his bike.
Let's talk.
Because I mentioned this the first time I rode with you guys. I ain't recording shit. So you got anti-locks on there.
Right.
And a lot of guys that ride in the dirt on those things short their anti-lock out so they can fucking stop their bike.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
I got anti-locks on here too, but I got decent tires. So
Is there a defeat switch?
yeah, there's a
I believe there is.
Yeah.
Traction control. Actually, I got traction control on.
I don't have a problem with the traction control. It's the fucking ABS that I'm worried
Yeah,
about.
if you could turn off ABS, because
So let me tell you what these guys do, and I'm not really sure where they do it, but it's like
Yeah, I don't know. I got two settings: traction control 1 and 2, and I don't know the difference.
It's just, I think it's on the right handlebar. It's a paper clip. You're shorting out the ABS, so it's a hack, but at least. So without that, what I would suggest is maybe just slow it down a little bit.
Okay.
I think you're going too fast, but
okay. That doesn't hurt my feeling to slow down. But on the other hand, too, I like a little momentum just because it helps.
Well, when we get to the rougher stuff,
where ABS messes you up is when you want to actually lock up the rear tire so that you can scoot a turn or something, like you do when you're on a BMX bike or something.
Right.
But if you're not going to be out here horning it around that much, you might not have a problem. ABS could help you.
Especially with the front.
Yeah.
Especially with the front.
My suggestion
it'll keep the bike upright, but I just wanted to mention that because when you really want to come to a stop,
that bike's not gonna stop. It's just gonna keep rolling, and you're gonna be going, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck, ah!
Yeah, but right, you're not, what we're on right now, it's like this most of the way till it starts getting hairy, and by then we might say,
well, I just wanted to mention that, maybe a couple other things about.
My only suggestion at being behind you is stay off of the ridge, because all the loose gravel.
That's exactly what I was gonna say, is stay in the track.
And when you do need to make a switch, cut it straight, just like train tracks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cut it straight and then cut it again instead of in a turn.
Most of these, you've got a ridge in the center, and
Right.
it's you got a lot of sandy, mushy stuff. I'm gonna ride up here because it's softer on me, and I can fucking turn. But
Right.
you, not so much.
I don't even like the feeling on this one riding in the middle. It's too.
I noticed it when I came across that one side. I'm like, okay, it's a little soft there.
Yeah.
Well, and that
stay
hole
up.
caught you. You ran straight through that hole. You didn't see that.
No, I didn't.
Well, there's going to be a lot of that stuff up here.
Yeah.
You don't know how to read the trail.
Right.
Just because, I mean, that's taken me years to learn how to read the trail.
Well, that's why I suggested you guys being in the front. That way I can follow your line.
Especially him. If he's moving from one side to the other, I would be like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
is
what's
up
he
there?
seeing?
Yeah. Is there a big hole up
Yeah.
there? Is there a trench?
This stuff hasn't bothered me at all.
Good.
I'm okay with slowing it down, but this stuff doesn't bother me at all. What I do have is ask questions of, though, because I wish I'd been able to have time to go take a course. This is my first adventure bike, too. I've been all street bike, mostly Harley, Kawasaki. But turning.
Faster going, really.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about leaning. I was just worried about keeping it upright. And
Okay.
out here, you got to plan ahead. You
Oh,
can't you can't put those harsh inputs in. Brakes, steering. You're just not going to be able to do it on that bike.
Well,
Even with good tires, you're going to have.
Yeah, it's heavy.
the tendency when you're on a new road, with a new bike, with new guys, in a terrain that you're not used to, is a tighter grip
Right.
and looking way closer to where you're at
Right.
because you're already stressed out. So
Right.
if you can see that hole, or you could go, I need to cross from this road, this wheel track to this wheel track. You see it up there, because if you see it right here, you're running through it. And if you try and dodge it, on this kind of stuff, if you get your wheel, it could just push out on you. Yeah, you just like Don said, you got to plan way farther.
That hole caught me because of the color. I couldn't see the shadow, and I'm like, uh-oh. I saw the color.
Well, you missed another one back here too. I think you missed it.
Well,
you were on the other side of the road, and
just that one. I kind of got to.
no, I'm saying you missed it. You didn't.
Oh.
You didn't go in it.
What also helps is standing up. You can see better.
Yep. Yep.
And when you stand up, even on a bike like that, if you lock your knees in as
Right.
tight as you can to the bike, you can actually you can let the bike feel loose and get used to that feeling, because that's what it's going to do. It's not the street.
Right.
So the bike's going loose just because of all the gravel and stuff. If you can get yourself used to that, it's like, oh, this is a loose feeling. I like it. It doesn't feel planted. Not even this bike.
This stuff didn't bother me.
Good.
It didn't bother me. I mean, I felt that little when I went over the ground. I'm like, okay, just stay off of that.
because
Well,
all the-
that's
all
my
the rocks
concern.
are
Is
down
like
in the middle.
I'm thinking you get too much confidence for what we're doing out here today. So
Okay.
lower your confidence level, bump your fear, your anxiety up just a little
I
bit.
don't want to get hurt.
Yeah. I don't want to pick up any pieces. I don't want you to break your bike. So, but
No, I'm good.
but that's just we should have had this conversation before we left. But this is a good spot.
No, it's good.
And
that section, that was great. I love that. That was great.
Well, that's why I wanted to come on this side, because it's still farm roads.
Yeah.
It's a good place to get your feet wet
Right.
and kind of feel what it feels like.
Right.
Yeah, well, we went a mile and a half on the other side. It just started kind of little uphills, little sandy. It was actually pretty sandy where we were going.
It was the sand that was worse for Shannon.
Sure.
Because she felt and I felt it occasionally. The rocks don't bother me. It's that soft
The ruts
sand.
should bother you. The ruts.
I mean, as much as the sand.
The ruts should bother you more.
Okay. All right.
They give faster.
Oh yeah.
They kick out from under your wheel and
Yeah.
your front wheel.
Yeah, you can come out of sand. If you get sideways in a rut, you're fucked.
But I think your best bet is pick a wheel track, stick to it as much as you can.
Okay.
If you got to go around a hole, do it gradually.
I would-
You're not gonna make a sharp dart.
Right.
Stuff, because
Yeah.
that's where you start losing traction.
Right.
You put your foot down and you tweak a knee. And
Those quick inputs, stay away from them. Except maybe your brakes. I'm thinking, play with your brakes while you're out here. See if you can get your brakes to lock up. Have you locked up your brakes before?
I have locked up my back brakes before.
Okay.
You can do it right here. As soon as we start
Yeah.
get a second gear, pull the clutch in, and just mash that back brake and see what happens with the back brake on
Right.
touch the front. See what the back brake.
Yeah,
if it starts to lock up and you start to let go. But if you got ABS, it's just you're gonna go forever.
Right.
The fronts are always going to be harder to lock up because that's where all your braking is, and not just that. Typically, when you load your front, your rear lifts up. You know all that, but so your rears are always going to lock up first. But you know, kind of.
I'll try that here on
Yeah,
this.
let's see what your ABS does. If you have to see how what your ABS does and stuff like this. Try to see if you can lock up that back wheel. Don't try the front until you're used to what you're doing, and then you can roll. If you want to see what your ABS does here too, that's fine. But
I've done it on hard path.
Just you've still got a long way to go before it gets real rough.
Well, and I would say follow me and ride my speed, but I'd rather you just maybe slow down about 5 miles an hour and
Follow
do your
your
own thing.
track.
Huh?
Follow your line. I would rather follow your line.
How about I ride behind you until we get to some nasty stuff, and then I'll get up in front of you. And then it's stuff that's actually you actually have to we have to start actually making decisions about path. I don't think I haven't really seen much yet. Just stay.
I am going to try the rear brake over here since it'll lock up.
Yeah.
So just to let you know.
Well, just stay off the crown.
Just warn you.
Stay off the crown. Stay on the tracks as much as you can.
Okay.
But there's going to be holes in these tracks too, so.
Yeah.
As we continued on around the mountain after our little talk, it was a bit disturbing that Dave, he was very excited to ride this road. We'd been talking about it for a few weeks, had been planning the ride, and finally it came. And I was a little bit concerned. Well, I was a lot concerned. I hate seeing people get hurt. It happens a lot on the trips that we take out into the middle of nowhere, especially with new riders. I'm very cautious and very protective of newer riders, newer dirt riders specifically. Doesn't matter how many miles you have on the street. If you don't have any experience in the dirt, your inability to negotiate the obstacles that you see in the dirt on the trail, and the ability to read the trail specifically is greatly diminished. Some of the skills you develop pretty quickly. Some of the skills take years to recognize obstacles, how to traverse the obstacles, either going around them, throttle speed, inputs, all those things are just typically the best riders in the dirt start when they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, start riding in the dirt, and that's what I recommend with every single person that gets on a motorcycle. I recommend don't get on a motorcycle till you start in the dirt. It's the most forgiving, number one, the most forgiving terrain to learn how to ride a motorcycle in is the dirt. There's typically not a lot of other vehicles that you have to navigate. The ability for you to walk away is much greater. And what I always say is your biggest obstacle, the most critical obstacle when you're riding in the dirt is running into another tree or another motorcycle. So given all that, the idea of starting out in the dirt is very important to me. But when you get to be our age, the way midlife, you get up to the point where a lot of people start their first time on a motorcycle. I've seen that so many times. First time on a motorcycle, so many guys start when they're in their 40s or 50s. And of course they start out on the street on the biggest bike that they can afford. A lot of them start out on 600, 700, 800 pound motorcycles, and they don't even have the basics, and they get hurt and killed at a shocking rate, where just a few hours in the dirt could greatly improve your skills, number one, and give you some other avenues to explore enjoying a motorcycle. It almost never happens. If you get up to our age, midlife, as a man, you typically don't want to get onto an ugly dirt bike, and there's plenty of reasons. I've made a video about it a while back. Check that out if you haven't seen it. But it's a very, motorcycling is a very ego-driven sport, and once you get enough money in your bank account, you want to show everybody how successful you are and buy the biggest, shiniest bike you can. It's very common. And I'm not saying that that's what happened with Dave. He's been riding a bike for a long time, just hasn't had the opportunity to ride in the dirt like Chris and I have. But being his second day, I think that's what he told me. This is his second day riding, and he had a lot of impressive skills. He's got tons of street skills. He's a riding instructor and a motor scout, and he absolutely knows how to ride on the street. But there's so many things that you learn in the dirt that he just hadn't picked up today. But this section here, relatively mild, no big deal. Just if you get into trouble, if you see something in the road, if there's an obstacle up ahead, being able to turn with the big heavy bike and street tires is just not something that's it can cause a lot of problems, and that was my biggest concern up until we got to the hairy part of the trail. I'm gonna have to add that as a second or third video. The hairy part, it's very interesting, but just I decided to make this an introduction to this adventure and go over a few of the ideas that are very important to me. I don't like seeing people get hurt. I see it all the time. In fact, my other motorcycle riding buddy on the island purchased the smaller Tenere, and from what I recall, our last conversation was he had very little experience in the dirt also. So that was his first trail adventure bike, and he went off and broke his leg practicing. So better practicing and getting injured. That way evacuation is a good bit easier, and death is less likely. But a lot of these things that we do in the dirt, folks like me do them because they're so much more exciting than just riding on the street. And not to take away from all the pleasures and the miles that I've had street riding, adventure riding on the street, there's just nothing quite like doing roads like this, riding adventures like this. But you've got to get some seat time in the dirt, and that seat time will also translate into so many other skills that translate to the street also, and that's one of the most underrated and underappreciated items.
These are the wrong fucking bikes, man.
Hit one of these, push my wheel left, got into this, I'm like, oh shit. And I was pretty much stopped. I was stopped. I go to put my foot down, and there's nothing here. So I put my left foot down.
Quiet on the set.
Center, do a wheelie.
I hope you'll join us next time when we show you how difficult it is to actually get a big heavy street bike with street tires up a road like this with big baby head boulders all over the place and big heavy steps. It's quite an adventure. I hope we'll see you then.